Dr. Cho and classmates / colleagues. This is Frank Ward, and we're taking a look today at Chapter 23 of our textbook, which is titled High Stakes Testing and Curriculum Control, a Qualitative Metasynthesis by Wayne. I think it's Al, might be O. I need to figure that out. But anyway, this is definitely an interesting chapter, especially with some personal thoughts I have with high stakes tests, curriculum. So let's get into it. Let's do it. Yes, high stakes testing, curriculum. How do they combine? We look at this editorial cartoon. Okay, class, we have some more high stakes testing. Here we go. And we got our nice, robust politicians over here from the local, state, and feds, all with their little mandates ready to tell us what to do. It's a lovely world we're in. Politicians can tell us how to teach. I can tell them how to politicize. Anyway, let's move on before I get on a soapbox. I'll save that for the end. All right, so curriculum. The study, which was the focus of this chapter, focused on three areas: subject matter knowledge, the structure of curriculum and how knowledge is organized, and then pedagogy and how it's taught, how it's delivered, how it's communicated to students. So the research was designed to gain a relationship, but a complex understanding of the relationship between curriculum and high-stakes testing. How much, if any, does high-stakes testing impact curriculum in the United States? They did a qualitative meta-analysis, so they looked at 40 different studies and pulled so they studied 40 studies. Get that? We studied the studies. Anyway, and pulled together to come up with findings of, all right, what are the trends we can take from all the different studies individually? Can we see any kind of trends, common threads between them? The researcher coded all the studies and looked at subject, content, pedagogy, and the knowledge structure as mentioned before. All right, once they did that, they started looking at, all right, teachers, do they align the content to the test? If so, how much? Do the tests impact the curriculum knowledge forms, the knowledge that we're going to impart to students and communicate? How much is impacted by the test? And how are teachers responding in their instructional methods to these tests, if at all? There are some limits to the study, as there are with any study. This one excludes, all right, so there aren't many studies out there about testing not impacting curriculum. So that's a limit. There's just not much research out there, apparently. So this does not take that into account. And then there's inconsistency with the 40 studies that this study looks at. Some of them look at the curriculum days and weeks before a test. Some look at the whole academic year. So it's not necessarily apples to apples all the time. So there's some limits just to keep in mind. Could impact the findings. Speaking of which, the overall finding is that there is indeed a substantial relationship between curriculum and high-stakes tests. Shocker. Guess you can sense where I'm coming in with this. I say shocker because, let's face it, in the classroom, it's a top-down thing. So I'll talk about this more later, but basically if the federal government is withholding funding based on state testing, then the administrators are worried about that, so they want the test scores to go up, so they impact the teachers teaching the kids to the test, and it's a whole mess. So let's just keep going. All right. There are three areas they looked at. The content control. How's the content controlled? Meaning the types of classes offered. Formal control, as far as the organizational structure of the curriculum and the content, the knowledge I'm getting at, and how is it controlling the teaching methods. Content control, they found that 80% of the studies, so that's at roughly the 40 studies, 32, 33 of the 40 studies, ballparking that, by the way, indicated a relationship between tests and the content expansion or contraction. So that means that classes, there might be a contraction. Some schools might pull things such as trades classes, electrician, HVAC, that kind of thing, or home ec classes, or other types of classes, so that they can focus more on the tested areas. Expansion, ironically, you would think, high-tech testing, they're expanding courses. However, that could be deceiving, because it could be such a way in that instead of having one language arts class, we're going to break it into two. I'll share an experience I had toward the end of this video with a district I worked in which they went to a block schedule model. So we had 2 semesters, and instead of one English class, students took 2 classes. So they had English all year, 80 minutes a day. I'll get to that later. Formal control, this is how the content's organized. And they found that it's fragmented into smaller pieces that replicated parts of the test. So yes, we're learning skills, we're teaching skills, but they may not be as in one whole thing. It might be, hey, we're going to take this little part of the skills and focus on this individually. And sometimes it gets put together into the whole, and sometimes it doesn't. And then the teaching part of this, teaching control over curriculum, increased teacher-centered teaching when focused on test-related information around. In addition, increased student-centered focus in language arts and social studies. But why is that? They found 3 key theme pairings. So looking at all the themes, there's 3 pairings, 3 things that kind of go together. Narrowing, constricting the curriculum, and increasing the teacher-centered. So we're going to cut down the amount of curriculum and make it more teacher-centered. Got to get those test scores up. Increased teacher-centered, and then increasing the fragmented knowledge form. So we're going to focus on the teachers and just little tiny parts of this. And then also narrowing the curriculum offered and fragmenting the knowledge. So those are the 3 pairings that kind of really jumped out in the findings. All right. In the end, the author focused his discussion on the fact that tests, surprise, they impact curriculum. We're narrowing the content to the tested areas. We're teaching fragmented, isolated pieces that'll help on a test, but may not make the connection to the bigger world beyond the school doors, kind of thing. Student-centered instruction goes with content expansion, but then again, if the content expansion is more of the same, language arts, math, social studies, is it really that? It's a mess. Critical literacy skills are taught through, it should be DBQs, document-based questions in social studies classes. That was kind of, so yeah, we're working on critical skills, but it's in relation to maybe a testing prompt, which I'll get to talk about in a minute, because I feel like some days I check my conscience at the door. So if we look at this, we're getting into my thoughts on this. Educational reform. We're going to test you, and if you do poorly, we're going to fire the teachers. Is there any proof that's going to improve the school? I don't know, man. That question's not on the test. And my favorite. Human resources interviewing somebody. See, you did well in school, but what kind of real-world skills do you have that are going to help you in this job? Tests. I could take tests because we test kids not only with state tests and federal tests, but then we got the benchmark test to see how they're doing in relation to the high-stakes state testing at the end of the year, and then we got to do a test. It's a mess. Those of us in the classroom, we know it's a mess. All right, so here's kind of what I'm thinking of the implications, my own thoughts here. Equity is a huge, and rightfully so, aspect of education right now. How do we give every student the same access to the content knowledge we're teaching? It doesn't mean everybody needs the same thing. Yet, we're going to judge schools and teachers on a standardized test, which is equality. It's not equity. Do some students get different supports on the test? If they have a 504 or an IEP, they might get extended time, maybe a calculator, but that's it. You're not getting extra organizers. You're not getting extra stuff. You got to kind of know how to use this stuff. So if I've taught a kid how to use graphic organizers, sometimes those kids will get on their scrap paper and actually write the organizers. It makes my day when they do that. but not everybody's getting the same thing. Some students might say it's a language arts test. They get a text. They love the topic, but some kids don't love the topic. Well, can't we figure out a test where there's options? We're all about student-centered, but the test isn't. So if we're really just trying to judge their skill level, there's barriers in place. I've said enough on this. I could go on for 32 more minutes. All right, contracting and expanding curriculum. This is like a pendulum. I see it shift all the time. Mentioned earlier, at school, my first school I taught at, they went to a block schedule. First semester 4 classes, second semester 4 classes. Science, you'll have one class, either spring or fall. Social studies, you'll have one class, spring or fall. Math and language arts, the test areas, you'll have one intro math class or one intro English class the first semester, and then part 2 the second semester. So in essence, they're getting twice the amount. Yeah, we're expanding curriculum, quote unquote. Contracting, I'm starting to see this shift a little bit. So a lot of times they were pulling away some of the other classes. The school I'm at now, they're actually adding. They actually added this year some courses for electricians and HVAC. So we're starting to see maybe a shift where we're expanding the course load. How that's going to impact test scores, who knows? If they impact them negatively, I wonder if these new programs will go away. And the final part, this is where I check my conscience at the door. Fragmented knowledge, fragmented pieces, little parts of the test. I feel like sometimes we have to teach explicitly how to answer a certain prompt that kids are going to see on the test that is not the way anybody really writes in the real world. You might have to summarize things for your boss. I don't know how many professions you're going to have somebody walk in and say, excuse me, could you write a compare and contrast essay, comparing and contrasting the author's purpose in each of these? But we need to do it. I teach at college level too, so I sometimes say I have to unteach what I taught in high school. It's a quick fix. I just have to get kids to focus, instead of on the text and the prompt, focus on what it is you want to say, which is the real world. High stakes testing, done. Already out.